So now I just want to talk about sex. And I don't often talk about sex. Sex is usually a taboo subject to talk about. But I've run into this issue now a few times where people obviously complain about lack of satisfaction, and they complain that their partners don't, you know, understand them sexually, and so they feel, frustrated and dissatisfied. And obviously these are complaints that usually come from women. Men usually feel satisfied 99.9% of the time, but naturally it's harder for women to experience that because they are not designed in the same way as men. So sexually, men are visual creatures. They visually stimulated. They are also stimulated by the environment, but less so. And so they are more capable of having sex and enjoying it all the time, as opposed to women who are more sexually complex in that they need to feel that the attraction must be there, it must be strong. They must feel like they're in a safe space. They must feel that they are in the right mood, etc. To become, to have a full experience and to feel satisfied by that experience. And then often women often obviously blame their husbands or their men for not being able to satisfy them. So the onus is on the man to do the job properly. And that is true in part, and that is also, but that's not the whole story, because the onus is not on the man entirely, and also it is in part nothing to do with the actual act of having sex for most women, although they think it is. So I'm going to break it down as far as I can by first saying that sex is actually concluded in the bedroom, but it doesn't start there. Okay? The sexual frustration or the sexual attraction, which must obviously be coupled with frustration, is sort of built up in life, in the way people live with each other, man and woman, and then it's concluded in the bedroom. So life is a long flirtation, like these birds behind me, basically, right? So life is your daily life with your wife is a flirtation that is then concluded with sex, but sex doesn't start there. And so that's the first thing that is important to note for the woman especially, and also for the man, but less so for the man, because the man can be inspired quite easily to have sex with his wife just by the mere suggestion of it. If he finds her attractive, even remotely, she doesn't even have to be that attractive, right? He may find many other women a lot more attractive than his own wife, but he will still sleep with his wife all the time if he could, because he is wired to, on average, like sex more, than his wife would on average, because men tend to have a higher libido, and that is for obvious reasons. Of course, I did some research on this, and I did some hypothetical situations with AI, data-driven hypothetical situations, and we found that a man can, on average, all things being optimal, if a man slept with a different woman every day, and these women were fertile women and he was a fertile man, he could have up to 30,000 children in his lifetime, some ridiculous number like that. Okay, there was actually a real man in history. One of them, Ismail something, some sultan, who had over 1,000 children, and then there was obviously Genghis Khan, who legend has it fathered a few thousand children. So that happened in that they documented or tried to document. But in the case of the Sultan Ismail something or the other, they actually document the exact number and they actually know who all his children are. But it ranges in the thousands. Okay, not the thousands, 1,000 and something. But obviously the average woman is only capable of having, and also all things being optimal, a woman could potentially have, if she started young and had children within her productive years, and there were no spaces between the gaps, say every 10 months she had a child, etc., she could have maybe up to 40 children. So the ratio between 30,000 in a lifetime and 40, we had it, I think it was 667 to 1. Now, if sex is primarily in the species for the purpose of procreation, obviously that's not all. Sex is not only for procreation, it's also for bonding, and it's also for fun, and for health. There's many benefits to sex other than procreating. But if the primary biological imperative for sex is to procreate, then obviously it would make sense that biologically men would have a much higher sex drive than women, considering that a man's optimal use of his sex drive would be to sire 30,000 children, whereas a woman's optimal use of her sex drive in terms of procreation would be 40. So obviously, there's just, the proportions are ridiculous, of course. And so therefore men are visually stimulated because it's geared towards his optimal performance, right? So a man can be sexually attracted to a woman whose name he doesn't know, and then if she were to find him alone and suggest that he now can sleep with her, there's a high possibility that he will, okay, without knowing her name, because that's how men are wired. Whereas women are more selective when it comes to who they mate with, because women have historically carried greater responsibility for the act of sex, because they're the ones who give birth to children. The consequences are more dire. So therefore they are more selective, and that is driven within their nature, it's instinctively the case that they are more selective, because being more selective, ensures the higher likelihood that their offspring will survive, parental investment from the man's side, and also good genetics. So the best looking man, the wealthiest man, all those things are important, because it drives the species to a better place, for the future, for posterity. So that's kind of why women need to be, obviously, highly selective, and they are. But okay, so now once they have selected, the problem we're having is that women often select partners to marry who have qualities that they they don't necessarily find attractive, but they know exhibits potential for longevity. So what does it mean? A woman might choose someone to be a husband. She finds him as husband material because he's wealthy, he has a stable career, he is reliable, and essentially he's boring. That translates into he's boring. So he's not the most attractive guy to have sex with, but he is the best guy for the long-term survival of herself and the children that she may have with him. So she chooses that guy, but she's not necessarily attracted to that guy. That's not the guy who gets her wet, just by looking at him. No, that's not, because he's not the exciting guy. But then the guy that she would gladly give it away to, like as in a one-night stand, just have fun with, that's not the guy she'll marry. So this is the conundrum that women face in today's world, because we have decoupled strength with success. We don't live we have tamed the world. So the world is not anymore a jungle, and because it is tamed, brute strength, physicality, good genes, that's athleticism, that women find attractive, innately find attractive, are not necessarily the indicators for wealth and prosperity in our time, in the modern jungle. And so women have the conundrum where the best hunter, the one who would have been the best hunter in the caveman days, the strong man with some intelligence but also brute strength, is still instinctively attractive to women, because he's he takes risks and his proportionality is good, he's athletic, etc. He's not the successful Bitcoin trader. He's not the successful computer programmer. He's not launching rockets into space, because he's the demands of the modern economy and modern careers is such that the person who excels intellectually becomes an intellectual. So the intellectual man has a big head and a small body and thick glasses, and he's highly successful, but he's not sexy. So this is the conundrum the woman faces, right? The sexy guy isn't a good provider. The good provider isn't sexy. So the problem is systemic, in other words. So when a woman complains and says, my husband doesn't do it for me, the truth is that her husband never did it for her from the beginning. Okay? And she was never ever attracted to him. She was attracted to what he can do for her. And this is the case of most women, and usually it is what he can do for her materially and in terms of a family, and she'll be happy to have children, etc. And so she's only having sex to have children, if she wants children, if she's that way inclined, or she's having sex as a chore because, well, she's married to him and he pays all the bills. And obviously, if you're going to approach sex in that way, you will not be satisfied. So what do you do? And this is the issue. How do we married people, some married people, fortunately I'm not in that situation. I'm married, but I don't have that problem. But those people who do have this type of problem, how do they solve it? Okay? The thing is, let's start with the part the man can do. Okay. So the man can start being more assertive, being more demanding, working out, being stronger, and also he can start manhandling his woman a little, but I don't mean abuse now. I don't mean physical abuse. I don't mean those types of things. I just mean being physically assertive. I mean, as a man, you can try dragging your wife by the wrists into the bedroom. If you've never done that before, that she might find interesting and exciting, because perhaps you've never acted in an assertive way in your life. You know, some men, of course, with a lot of cultural constraints in modern culture, men have been taught that they must sort of ask their wife's permission to have sex with them. Now, human sexuality doesn't work in that way, okay? Because we haven't evolved. We are human animals, basically. So instinctively, we haven't evolved to the point where a man asking permission is sexy. It's frankly, I think most natural humans and women would dry up completely if men had to approach sex like that. And unfortunately, the Western man, I think they do approach it like that because they're afraid of accusations like marital rape, etc. And I'm not advocating marital rape, but I'm advocating knowing your woman and knowing the game, understanding the game. There must be the play. There must be a play. It's basically a play. Okay, think about yourself. Think of yourself as a caveman. Okay, and think of yourself as a hunter, and think of your wife as prey. Now, of course, yes, she consented, you married her, of course, you may even have kids, but you got to think about it in that way. You're a hunter, you're a caveman, and you are hunting and your wife is your prey. Okay, think about it like that and play the game. Play the game, okay? There has to be some friction. Attraction has to do with space. There being some space between the two of you that must be sort of breached in order for the game to work. You know, so you need to get in. You need to role play. You need to get into. You need to let go of being this geek and this intellectual and whatever you are at work and whoever you are, and you need to learn to get in touch with your animal inside of you, your animal self. You need to get in touch with that, with him, with who he is, because that's who a woman is attracted to. Yeah, like your wife would find you more attractive if you knew how to do that. So, because human sexuality is animalistic, it's not sophisticated, but we have developed all these kind of sophistications around ourselves that we have lost touch with just being, and that's what we need to learn to do. We need to know how to switch that off and switch that on. Of course, we can't act like that out in society because we have decent boundaries, but within the confines of our homes and our bedrooms we can, right? So you need to learn to just be. And manhandle, do what you want to with her. This is the thing about sex, right? If you as a man, if you're going to tiptoe around your wife, she's not going to want to sleep with you. If you're going to ask permission, she's not going to want to sleep with you. If you're going to make it about her, you are just totally going to switch her off. And a lot of men unfortunately do that. They are so focused on what the wife wants, and does she want and doesn't she want, and how she feels and how, that the woman doesn't feel feminine. She can't feel feminine. She doesn't even feel safe with the man, because it's as if his whole thing is like he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know where he stands, even with himself. She's not going to feel safe. Even if she's been married to you for a long time, you just haven't made her feel like she belongs to you. She needs to feel that you own her sexually, basically. And that's a turn on, right? And there's a lot of women that's going to give me pushback on this and say, no, that isn't. But those are the feminist, purple-haired women who are rightfully asexual, most of them, because, of course, nobody wants to sleep with them, right? So forget about them. Don't even listen to them. So this is what you can do as a man. You have to get in touch with your instincts. And you need to see your wife as, yes, she's an independent person, but she's sexually your possession. You need to see her that way, and you need to act that way. And that's going to turn on, right? And as for the woman, I mean, a lot of women are insufferable in their marriages, and that's why the men don't even want to sleep with their husbands, don't want to sleep with them, because it's almost like to sleep with this insufferable woman is going to bruise the man's ego. He's going to feel like he has to now to lower himself to her level in order to sleep with her on her terms, and men don't like that. And so the man, what does he do? He just stops approaching her. A lot of older couples, you'll find the man and woman, they sleep in separate rooms or they sleep on separate beds, and they don't sleep with each other. And if they sleep with each other once a year, if they're lucky, right? And why is that? It's because the woman is too strong. Okay? If you want to remain attractive to your husband, you need to obey him. You need to be submissive. That is the flirtation that needs to happen in your life so that sex can be concluded in the bedroom. And women know this instinctively. I've seen it over and over again. When a woman is trying to tempt the guy, when she's being a temptress, when she's trying to woo him, when she wants him to sleep with her, then she acts all meek. You'll notice women do that. When a woman is flirting with a guy, then she raises the pitch of her voice and she defers to him. And she says, oh, but Josh, what do you think? Okay, because now it matters what Josh thinks. And Josh comes in and he says, well, it should be over there. And then she will, defer to him, and she will say, but what would you like? And this and that. She would act all meek and submissive and humble and raise the pitch in her voice and change her posture and everything because she wants this guy to sleep with her, right? She's doing the female thing. So women know it. Instinctively they know it. But then when she marries the guy, the thing about when you marry the woman, when she marries the guy, a lot of women, she then wrestles him for control. Now, women can be so insufferable when they're wrestling the man for control that the men eventually just give up. They throw in the towel. They're like, you know what? Since you want this to be in charge, be in charge. Because I'm tired of listening to you nag every day, right? And they lose the fight. And when they lose the fight, they lose the fight in the bed too. The marriage becomes sexless because the man doesn't want to sleep with a dominant woman who doesn't adhere to his authority or listen to him instinctively. And that is a biological protection mechanism in a man. Because if you sleep with a woman who doesn't submit to your authority, and then you have a child with this woman, you will have children who don't submit to your authority. When you have children who don't submit to your authority, your children become a liability to you in the world because they bear your name. And your life will be forever miserable because you will be responsible for children who bear your name, who don't respect you, and who don't adhere to your authority, and who don't follow your rules. That's why men are instinctively designed to not want to sleep with women who don't submit to their authority. And when women do sleep with such women, it's because they don't have optionality, basically. So the man is just thinks to himself, I'm just grateful that I even have a wife, because he's such he's such a simp that he's been indoctrinated to basically just feel gratitude for even being able to sleep with this woman twice a year or something like that, because otherwise he thinks he doesn't think that he would ever be able to get anything outside of her. I mean, that's how badly he's brainwashed. And maybe maybe it's true for some men. I for one don't think so, actually, right? So for the woman, if you want your husband to always find you attractive, then you need to obey him and you need to be submissive, because he is biologically designed to want to sleep with a submissive woman. He is not biologically designed to want to sleep with a woman who will rebel against him and who won't submit to his authority. And women know this instinctively. That's why they role play, they act submissive. Even when they want to have a one night stand, they act submissive towards the man they want to sleep with. That, because they know that's what turns men on, instinctively. And so the whole problem of sex and sexual attraction can be solved if people just learn how to be in touch with their instincts, both men and women, and if they truly desire one another, then there won't be a problem. Okay? The problem stems from men not being men and women not being women, and women wanting to be men and men wanting to be women. Men do want to be women because they get tired of responsibility and they cede that responsibility over to women, and then women become the husbands and the men become the wives. And when the woman is the husband, the woman doesn't want another woman in her life. She wants a man, and the man, the husband, who's the man, isn't a real man, so she doesn't want to sleep with him. And the man doesn't want another man, he wants a woman, and his woman is not a real woman, she's a man. And that's the problem, essentially. So in order to fix this whole conundrum of sexuality, just to recap, the man, although he be an intellectual or be a computer pro, he's a geek, he needs to learn to be assertive, to get in touch with his natural primal instincts and take possession of his wife. This is my woman. He needs to think that way. And the woman needs to be submissive and obey her husband and say that I will follow my husband's lead. That solves a lot of problems, sexual problems, because that maintains attraction on both ends of for the woman and for the man. And then, regarding other kind of thing like mechanical, physical issues that people complain about, like the guy comes too quickly, for example. A lot of women complain about that, She's ready, she's just getting started and then he's finishing. Okay, right? That's a mechanical problem, like a bodily function problem, right? That can be solved by just being more patient. I think if this is a problem, after the woman and the man, they do the flirtations in their relationship through the way they interact with each other. And this is a problem that's happens in the bedroom on concluding the flirtations, and it's a genuine problem, not because of disrespect and also lack of attraction, etc., then it can just be managed by delaying the action. Longer flirtation, longer foreplay, and on also delaying the action itself, and that can actually be delayed by the woman herself, frankly, without the involvement of the man. And I mean, I don't want to be too explicit, but there's such a thing as utilizing the positioning of the hips, your hips, to control the momentum of what's taking place. And a woman can do that herself. And I don't, this thing about not being an agent in the bedroom is also part of the problem, because women often see themselves as the one that the act of sex is being done to, and not as the one doing the act of sex. And I think that a woman can take control of satisfying herself through the use of her husband, also in the same way that as the husband satisfies himself through the use of his wife. So I think people need to take responsibility for themselves in that regard, and I think women can stop being victims and also carry some agency in the matter. So you can slow down the tempo according to the way you feel, also because it's a game of two. It's a team sport, right? So it's not only your husband, for example, he just wants to 1, 2, 3 and then he's done. You can delay it. You play the game with. You need to create that friction, that resistance, that you need to slow it down yourself as the woman, if that's what you're going for. Because some women obviously don't like the thing to be slowed down, and some women are like those old Volkswagen cars, when you start it up in the morning, you gotta pull out the choke and it takes like 20 minutes to warm up before you can drive it, kind of thing, right? And then some women are not like that, right? But the point is, the woman needs to take agency and responsibility also for that herself. And then the man, of course, I mean, if you marry to a woman presumably for a long time, you should have learned what model car she is. I mean, if she's like the old Volkswagen thing, then you need to know to take your time. You need to have your finger on the pulse here also, So, I mean, you need to learn to know your woman, and then know how to engage them in a way that is going to optimally satisfy her, because her sexual satisfaction is also very important in the marriage if you want to stay married, frankly. But the caution I have for men, and this is the important thing, is that it mustn't be about that. Because when a man thinks to himself, if you approach a woman and you think, how best can I satisfy this woman? What can I do to satisfy her sexually? Sex will begin to feel like a chore for you, because you're so focused on satisfying her. So, and it'll turn you off, because men are not designed to be the object of sex. Men are more designed to be because in sex that you are giving the woman something. You are the giver. You understand? So because of that, you need to approach it as a giver. Okay, so of course your primary concern should be with your own satisfaction, right? But you can tailor make that, to best suit the woman that you are engaged with in that instance, the wife you are engaged with in that instance. You can do that, right? But your focus should not be on how best can I satisfy her. And similarly, because that's you, that's the masculine sort of sexual archetype, right? But the woman enjoys sex the most, and this is the thing that women don't understand, is when she thinks about him. So her mentality should be is, how best can I satisfy him? Because when she thinks like that, that's when she enjoys sex the most. It's when she thinks, how best can I satisfy myself through the use of him, that it's going to be disappointing. Because that's not the female archetype. That's not how the thing works in the masculine and feminine. The energy is wrong. Okay? So that is important. So yeah, so I think that's all I have to say about that. And that's what I get from speaking to a lot of people, and from myself and my own experience also, that people are sexual beings, and a lot of what happens in life is actually a flirtation around sex, whether it is with your spouse or even with people you're not married to. There are often sexual undertones to a lot of things that humans do and human interaction. Sex is a big part of the species, and of course that's because every species is designed to survive and perpetuate itself, and perpetuating itself is even more important than the survival of the individual. That's why someone might prefer to, a man for example, he may be hungry and he may be horny, and at the same time, and he'll probably want to have sex before he eats. And there's a reason for that, because the sexual drive is there to perpetuate the species, whereas eating is there to help only him survive. Only he will survive in that. That's also why men feel more inclined to want to have sex when there's danger, like in the middle of a war because it's primordial, it's instinctual, okay? And it really isn't that complicated, but you just gotta think monkey. You gotta think primordial. You gotta think we are not that different from other species. Thank you very much.